Standard Time.
Hi, I'm Johnny Dam, host of the Damage Report radio show. When I'm not falling in love with the First Amendment all over again, I like to sit back, relax, and rub my meat to the BBQ Central show. And now your host, Greg Rempe. Go, Greg. Yeah, rub that meat.
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh, should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Let's try this again. All right, good evening and welcome to the Really Big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling. Broadcasting live from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city of Cleveland, Ohio. It is the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I'm your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evening. If you want to jump in on the show tonight, more than happy to have you with a phone call, 216-220-0966. It is also an email, if you want to do it that way, Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. Everything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you didn't get the newsletter that came out about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Coming up in about 13 minutes from now, second Tuesday guest of each and every month, creator of the most heavily trafficked barbecue and grilling website on the face of the earth, and friend of mine, Meathead Goldwood, joining us on the show. He will also stay through 9:35 as well. And then we'll move to the second hour. Coming up in the second hour at 10:14, he's been on the show before. He took a grand championship this past weekend in Wildomar, California. He'll recap the weekend as well as give us some insight as to what he has been up to since he has been on the show last. Matt Dalton of Left Coast Q on board. That's right. And helping me close the show out tonight, we kind of keep it out west-ish, if you will. Sam's Club local qualifying event champ out of Salt Lake City. Roger and Rod Livingston, the R&R BBQ Team, in at 10:35 Eastern. So there you have it. Meathead, Matt Dalton, Roger and Rod Livingston. Your calls and emails and so forth, 216-220-0966. Email Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. Hey, right now, if you're watching the show, do me a solid, if you will, and make sure that you make a tweet or a Facebook post or something along the lines of a social media outlet that the show is on the air. A couple different websites you want to send folks to. The main website for audio streams and so forth is thebbqcentralshow.com, as you see right there in the lower third. You can send them to the longtime video syndication partner of the show, outdoorcookingchannel.com. If you have Roku or something along those lines, please feel free to send them over to the App Store at their respective Internet Protocol television outlet store or app store, whatever you call it. Search for the Outdoor Cooking Channel app if they have it. Download it, and you can get not only the live stream of Outdoor Cooking Channel, where you can see the show each and every Tuesday between 9 and 11. You also have party and access to all of the archive shows that Kevin Bevington from Outdoor Cooking Channel has as well. You can subscribe to this show audibly through iTunes for all those replays. I have the YouTube channel. I have the Outdoor Cooking Channel, as I just mentioned, as well for video replays. Of course, the main clearinghouse for any and all replays of the show, both video and audio, my site, thebbqcentralshow.com, so there's never any reason that you should miss anything on this show ever, especially like a show tonight where we have stuff covering a bunch of different varieties of the industry, competition, meats and salts and sugars and so forth. Special mention to Dave Bosca of Butcher Barbecue on his GC this past week in Cedar Park, Texas. David! Go back through, good finish overall. Great, consistent category finishes. Wins the whole damn thing with a 675.9. So let's just call it a 676 for fun. So way to go, David. Proving, here's what I like most importantly. Dave has been a long-time sponsor of this show. Unabashedly, I'm a fan of his products. However, it is great to see a guy who is out there doing the circuit, has been successful, and has won for as many years as he has, and he's using products that he sells to the general public, in competition. So it's not, he's doing one thing on the competition trail and he's doing something else when it comes down to brass tacks. Dave is a guy that tries the products, tried and true, in competition, and then we'll release them to the general public as well, like me. And I can use them in my backyard, as I did this past weekend with the grilling oils and the ribs and so forth, which I'll talk to you a little bit more about in the read when we get to Dave's stuff. So congratulations to Dave on yet another grand championship, and continued success wherever the next contest takes you, sir. A couple things here before we get off to Meathead. First and foremost, please, as I asked you last week, I'm going through bits and pieces of my audio and video chain here. See if there's the hot and cold audio situation like we had last week. This year I'm not going through my compressor limiter gate, so if you hear any background noise, I apologize, but the machine that typically will duck that or take that out, I don't have in, so I can then either diagnose that as a root cause of my hot and cold audio, or I can say it's okay and we can plug it back in, and next week it'll be back up and running again. I only have 2 pieces left. If this doesn't fix it, it's either the mixer or my computer, both high-ticket items. Of course, that's going to be what it is. Also, I can see on my end that my video is jumpy tonight. I have no explanation on why my video is jumpy tonight, and I've changed nothing on the video side of things. So bear with that, and hopefully that rectifies itself before next show. Of course, what am I always telling you people? What am I always telling you people? If you're going to have a barbecue, especially a family barbecue, keep the barbecue forks away from the general consuming public. Can we please? Is that possible? I mean, nobody ever wants to listen to me, but I'm telling you right from the Salt Lake Tribune, okay? This is the St. Louis Rib.com, STLRIB.com. It's a news website, St. Louis, I'm guessing. A jury Thursday found a 42-year-old West Valley City woman guilty of both first-degree felony murder and second-degree felony obstruction of justice. Thu Hung Thi Nguyen, that's her name, Thu Hung Thi Nguyen, was accused of fatally stabbing the father of her infant child in the midst of a 2014 Labor Day barbecue. A 3rd District Court jury deliberated her fate for a mere 6 hours, beginning at about 3 p.m., following her 3-day trial. Nguyen will be sentenced this coming May for the 2014 death of a 44-year-old Ty Lee. She faces up to life in prison when she is sentenced by a judge. According to witness testimony, the couple have been fighting for hours when Nguyen went to the kitchen and got a barbecue fork. Lee allegedly challenged Nguyen to stab him, and she did just that, according to the testimony. Nguyen, who testified Thursday morning through an interpreter, gave a different story. I took the barbecue fork in the kitchen. I went to the living room. I was holding the fork just like this, and somebody pushed me and grabbed my arm. She, of course, loves this guy that is now dead, because what's not to love about a guy that you hated who's now dead? Nothing. It's great. Things have worked out as planned, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Look, I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Barbecue forks are not only implements of a barbecue or a grill. Great for getting large meats off the grill and off the cooker or whatever. But you leave that thing laying around, you get cocktails thrown into people, you get to bickering about what barbecue region is better than the next, and all of a sudden, you wind up with a barbecue fork stabbed in your throat. And as they say, you wake up dead. So, let it be warned. If you're going to keep the barbecue fork, stick the corks on the end of the barbecue fork. That might give you a fighting chance, maybe. Maybe? Maybe not. All right, folks, before we get to Meathead Goldwyn, let me talk to you about Suckle Busters' award-winning barbecue rubs, sauces, chili kits, and Texas gunpowder, preferred by competition barbecue cooks. Texas-based, 100% U.S.-made products have won hundreds of industry awards, including 2 first place, 2 years in a row at the American Royal Barbecue Sauce Contest, the World Series of barbecue competitions. New to Suckle Busters, honey barbecue glaze and finishing sauce. That's right, based on Suckle Busters' award-winning honey barbecue sauce. Thin. This is a thin barbecue glaze and finishing sauce made especially for competition ribs and chicken. It's super sweet, not spicy, and it is super red. They use a special American paprika for the bright red color. Brush it on over the last 5 to 10 minutes of cooking. It leaves a glossy red sheen. And the meat add an extra layer of sweet flavor for those judges to savor and evaluate for high scores. Take your competition ribs and chicken, as they say, to a whole nother level. That's N-U-T-H-A, whole nother level of the game. Available at local barbecue stores or online at sucklebusters.com. As we've done here in the last number of weeks, if you would like to try yourself a free bottle of the Suckle Busters Honey Barbecue Glaze and Finishing Sauce, email me right now. In the subject line, put Stab Barbecue Fork. Stab Barbecue Fork in the subject line. And first one in gets a bottle of the new Suckle Busters Honey Barbecue Glaze and Finishing Sauce. You can try it out for yourself. I just reheated some chicken that I put on the grill the other day and some leftover ribs, and I hit it up with some of this honey barbecue glaze and finishing sauce. I gotta say, super sweet for sure, but not in a fake way. So if you're gonna go super sweet, you gotta be kind of a real or authentic with the sweetness, not like a bunch of sugar crystals all up in the mix. You don't want that. This is good. You might want to try it out. Something you want to throw into the mix. First one in with barbecue, what did I say? Barbecue neck stab or something like that. In the subject line, you can win a bottle of the Suckle Busters Honey Barbecue Glaze and Finishing Sauce, sucklebusters.com. That's sucklebusters.com. We are back with one of the first 2 segments with Meathead Goldwyn from AmazingRibs.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Radio Network studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Radio Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. This portion of the Barbecue Central Show being brought to you by Sam's Club National Barbecue Tour. 31 cities, $500,000 in cash to be won. The next stop on the tour is this Saturday, the 18th. This is a local qualifying event that will feed into the Las Vegas, Nevada Regional Final. That takes place on April 25th, by the way. Find out more about Sam's Club Barbecue Series, check results, or to register your team to compete, because you still can. You can visit kcbs.us/Sam's Tour. Great to have Sam's Club back on board with the show. All right. You see him here each and every second Tuesday of the month, creator of the most heavily trafficked barbecue and grilling website. And perhaps we are looking to take sail with our next guest. It's Meathead Goldwyn, ladies and gentlemen. Meathead.
Ahoy, Captain Rippy.
Arr.
Central Nights.
Stargy Worthy, me matey. Thanks for joining me show.
How's the barbecue rock star from the rock and roll city?
The swabbies are doing great. I got them rubbing the deck. Look at our beards.
We're going to be talking about salt tonight.
Let's go rape and pillage and plunder. That's right. Let's get there. Well, okay, that was great. Is it National Pirate
Somebody
Day?
would have thought we rehearsed that.
I know, we didn't. We're just... See, that's what happens when true talent shines through, Meathead.
It's a couple of idiots. Is what
Hey, well, you say idiot, I say true talent, but whatever. All right, Meathead.
Good to see you, Greg.
You too as well, Meathead. I've done a number of stories recently, Meathead, before we get into the salt of the subject. With people assaulting loved ones at barbecues with barbecue forks. I mean, they have had kind of a bad... People look down, the true barbecue people look down at them because you're stabbing meat and it's not good to stab. And so I think the barbecue fork has taken a little in its day over the last number of years. Yeah. But now people are waking up with them in their necks and in their own ribs instead of spare ribs. Maybe is this something that the FDA might be looking to outlaw next?
Maybe we need to start a movement, tongues and thongs.
Tongs and thongs, yeah! Fundraiser, Barbecue Central, my house.
Well, I mean, with obviously they're deadly weapons, but the fact is, a lot of folks use.
All right, and it appears, friends, neighbors, we are back up. Well, that's what happens. This is what I say. You have a internet-based show that is dependent on the internet, and these are things that happen. For instance, when the internet goes away, you don't have much of a show left. All right, let's try and get Meathead Goldwyn back up here. Stay with me. Stand by the audio stream. All right. Meathead.
Yeah.
Here we go. Internet crapped out on me here in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city. We're getting ready. We're conserving bandwidth for the big playoff push here for the Cavaliers.
All right. We got to tell everybody to refresh. I've been chatting with them, and the
Oh, you're listening to the show somewhere, too. Kill it.
All right. I just turned it off.
Yeah.
And when I refreshed, that came back on.
All right.
Let me just show. I'm going to do it.
The good news is I paused my audio stream, so anybody listening to the audio archives has no idea what's happening. It's seamless. Seamless perfection. So we were in the middle of talking about how we were going to get barbecue... thongs and tongs to my house ASAP, right?
Yeah. Something wasn't on the agenda for tonight that I just was reminded of is there was a news item. I don't know if you covered it last week or the week before, floating around about the EPA funding research to control barbecue smoke. Did you discuss that issue?
No, I didn't, but I did see that, obviously, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
We exchanged mail on it, I recall. And that thing has been going around the internet like fire. It's just hysterical. For everybody who's seen that thing, EPA encourages young students to learn about science, and they give them modest grants. In this case, they gave $15,000, which is really chump change. Can't do much science on $15,000. But don't tell that to Dr. Blonder. They were researching how to keep the particulates from a gas grill, propane grill, down in order to reduce pollution. And somehow that got blown up primarily through, I'm not going to show my political stripes here, but primarily through the panic-stricken government is trying to rule our lives channels into EPA is going to control barbecue and barbecue smoke, and it's the end of the world as we know it.
Whoa.
And that was really quite a funny incident. I got so many emails on that one.
So let's take it down the rabbit hole here, Meathead. How could the government possibly regulate people cooking in their backyard? Like mandates, grill manufacturers would have to make all this special chimney on all cookers. It would have a super heater element on it to do like secondhand burn off, like turbo type stuff. I mean, what are we looking at?
Well, I mean, it could come to that someday. I don't want to be
really
totally dismissive of it. But realistically, I think in the priorities list of controlling pollution and other things, here in Illinois right now, they're control burning all the prairies. The smoke from one 10-acre control burn where they're burning down the prairies, the smoke from a forest fire in the mountains in California, the smoke from fireplaces, gasoline, NASCAR. I mean, there's just so many pollutants out there. Barbecue and grilling has to be pretty far down on the priority list. It may come to that. I mean, if they finally get all those other control sources under control and our air and water are still being ruined, which would not be likely if they get all those other things under control, then they may come after us. But I just cannot imagine under any circumstances any politician voting for or supporting or proposing or allowing regulation to control our backyard barbecue.
No, of course, because most politicians at some point or another in their stumping go to a barbecue joint and say how much they love barbecue.
Absolutely. That's part of the, it's like kissing babies. You got to go to a barbecue joint. So I just don't know. I mean, there is a segment of our society who is convinced that the government is after everything they own, and that means their barbecues. And it was just hysterical. I was getting these terrible emails. It's just not going to happen in our life. At $15,000 to a bunch of students in UC California, I forget which, Berkeley or Davis or one of them, is just, it's just not a real. And it occurred last summer. The press somehow. Oh, I know what it was. Washington. It was one of the politically oriented publications that ran this story, and it blew up. It took off. I think some state senator in Missouri, of course, where barbecue is
barbecue
king,
capital, right?
Got all agitated about it. It's just not going to happen in our lifetimes.
Meathead Goldwyn joining me here on the show. AmazingRibs.com is his website. So tonight, the big portion of the topic was going to be that you have taken all the salt out of your rubs. Because the salt needs to go on separately, and this is what we're going to kind of pound into tonight.
Yeah, it just came to me. I mean, almost all my brilliant ideas come through Dr. Blonder. Everybody thinks I know a lot about barbecue, and it's all I channel Dr. Blonder. But this was one I kind of came to on my own. The analogy I make is that salt and spices in a rub are like the gas pedal and brake on your car. They work in concert, but they need to be handled separately. Salt, we know, and I'm assuming that the audience has read a little bit about this, has perhaps heard me, or seen it on my website, or it's spread around quite a bit. Salt penetrates meat fairly well. Salt is sodium chloride, two little atoms, and they break apart and they create electrical charges, and they go working their way to the center of the meat. Sugar is this huge molecule, and garlic is this huge molecule, and all these other, and they just really don't go far into the meat, barely more than 1/8 of an inch, and we've proven that, and that's pretty well clear. So all the stuff in your rub is pretty much a surface treatment, and that's okay because we want surface treatment, and we've even shown that rough surfaces attract and hold more smoke. So we want those rubs on the surface. But we want the salt to get on the surface and get down in there to flavor, season the meat, and salt also helps the protein hang on to moisture. So your meat's going to be more moist. So the theory that I put forth and that I want to argue tonight is that if you formulate all your own rubs at home, and you should, because they're not hard to formulate, and you can experiment with them, and you can buy your favorite rubs and kind of reverse engineer them, get the salt out of your rubs. I mean, when you buy a rub, for crying out loud, sometimes half of the bottle is salt, and you're paying a premium price, and you're just buying salt.
Meathead, if I could just interrupt just for 1 second. To all of my show sponsors, Meathead is talking tomfoolery. Disregard. Disregard. Buy to your heart's content. Please, Meathead, continue.
It would take a courageous manufacturer to put out a barbecue rub without salt. It would be 2 or 3 times the price because the cost of spices and herbs is much more than salt. But it makes huge sense. For example, when you put salt on, it's a interior treatment of the meat. It gets down into the meat, it treats the flavor of the meat, holds the moisture, and so on. The spices are an exterior treatment. So, on a slab of ribs, you need less salt because it doesn't have to penetrate very far than you do on a pork butt, where you need more salt. So, the other thing is that salt takes time to penetrate. So, it makes a lot of sense to salt your meats at least a couple of hours, maybe overnight, to give the salt a chance to work its way down in. And then you can throw the spices and herbs on at the end because they're not going very far. And then so you can add more salt to a thick cut of meat like a brisket or a pork shoulder, and less salt to a pork ribs or beef. What's a thin cut of beef?
Steak.
A thin steak or something. So you want to control it. There's other reasons why you don't want salt in your rubs. Let's say you want to throw a rub, your favorite barbecue rub, on your Easter ham. Well, that's already heavily salted.
Yes, injected.
You do not want any more salt on there. Well, but the rub is going to be nice. It's going to add flavor. It's going to help build your crust, build your bark. We love bark. We want the rub, especially the sugars and the other things in our bark. But we don't want salt. So if you keep your rubs salt-free, if you make them yourself, or maybe some of your sponsors and other manufacturers will understand the concept and say, okay, we're putting out salt-free rubs. They're going to cost more, but we have a great blend. And you know, blending rubs is really beyond craft. It's art. And there's really good blends out there.
All right, so let me interrupt just for 1 second.
Yeah,
so let's say a Dave Bosca, he's a forward thinker when it comes to barbecue products, or a Sterling.
Let's salute to Dave Bosca.
Of course, he's a magician. Or let's say a Sterling Ball, or one of these other guys, Suckle Busters. Let me go down the sponsor line here. If they made a blend of just the spices you say, do they then have to say or give some type of a recipe ticket or add a side package of salt and say, oh, hey, by the way, don't forget to put the salt on to some degree, and here are some variations of how you want to do that, or what salt to buy, or pink Himalayan salt versus sea salt versus kosher salt versus table salt? I mean, isn't this where simplicity is reigns supreme?
Yeah, this is going to be a problem. I mean, there are other reasons, and I can elucidate on them, and we'll talk about them more, but there are really good reasons to separate the two. And it becomes a serious marketing, and my phone's going to ring first thing in the morning from Sterling. God, oh, geez, I'm going to hear it. My ears are going to burn off. But it makes sense. I don't know how the rub manufacturers deal with it, but there's not many people who get this. I've been preaching it on my website only for about a year when it dawned on me that I have more flexibility. The gas and the brake, they're separate. They work in concert. Salt and the spices They work in concert. Apply the salt in advance. Vary the amount of salt depending on the thickness of the meat, how far it has to penetrate, and you want it down in there. And then you certainly want to cover the exterior. So it becomes an issue. Look at turkey. It's really hard to get a turkey that hasn't been injected with salt anymore. You don't want to put a poultry rub that's loaded with salt on top of an injected turkey. You're going to get a very salty turkey. I just think it makes huge sense. So I've taken it out of I have a number of rub recipes on my website. I think they're above average. I don't know if they're great, but there's some really great rubs out there. I love them. I've tried to steal a few of them by reverse engineering. But it makes sense to just get the two of them separated. And maybe some of your competitors who are looking for an edge get this idea and say, okay, get that salt down right away. And vary the amount. Somewhere around a half a teaspoon of kosher salt per pound, I think, is a good rough number. Half a teaspoon kosher salt per pound is a good rough number. And then the rub depends on the surface area. Obviously, you don't want to coat it so thick that you can't see the meat underneath. But then again, you might. I mean, your blend might have a lot of stuff that you want. That's up to you.
All right, Meathead, hold that thought here just for a second. We're a little bit over, so let's catch up real quick. We'll come back with more salt and spice rub talk here as you are shattering people's very foundations, as you can believe, as you are normally ought to do, which is great. All right, so let's talk to you quickly about none other than Big Poppa Smokers, the one-stop online shop for anyone interested in barbecue, the number one dealer of mac and pellet grills in the world. Big Poppa Smokers features a wide selection of American-made grills and smokers, such as the Old Hickory Ace BP Gateway Drum Smokers, even a drum kit that gives you everything you need to make a world-class smoker out of a 55-gallon drum. Big Poppa Smokers also has made a name for itself in recent years by crafting an award-winning line of championship rubs, flavors like Sweet Money and Happy Ending. Their rubs have a hand in winning almost every major barbecue competition event, including the 2012 and 13 American Royal, the 12 and 14 Jack, the 13 Kingsford Invitational, the 2014 Livestock and Rodeo held in Houston, also the 2014 King of the Smoker. Don't think that Big Poppas can be pigeonholed into just competitive barbecue either. BPS rubs have become so well known that they've been picked up by a national restaurant chain, BJ's Restaurant and Brew House. This 4 of their 9 BPS rubs have now been permanently featured on their menu, and amid glowing reviews, BPS rubs proven to be a great addition to anyone's pantry. Big Poppa also is banded together with fellow California-based rub company called Simply Marvelous Barbecue to form what is now known as the West Coast Offense. Defying conventional wisdom, these two California-based rub makers have cornered the market on competitive barbecue and begun to redefine the flavor profile that competitive cooks from across the country have begun to aim for. BPS website also features an online meat locker with top-quality meats and Snake River Farms. From the American Kobe beef to the Caribou de porks to the Double R ranch meats, Big Poppa's Meat Locker has something for every type of barbecue aficionado, and they're committed to bringing you the best barbecue flavors on the market. For instance, Swamp Boys sauce, a fine swine sauce, Granny's barbecue sauce. These are the hot new sauces, the new kids on the block, if you will, this barbecue season. They're also creating a unique brand ambassador program called the BPS Elite Team, featuring 15 of the best competition teams in the country working together to promote camaraderie, competition, barbecue, and to benefit children's charities across the U.S. Keep in mind that Big Poppa has been able to do all of this with only the 5 years of being in business, turning the competition world on its head, providing customers with the very best barbecue products, becoming a staple of a nationwide restaurant chain, and benefiting children's charities across the U.S. Just the beginning for Big Poppa Smokers. The website, BigPoppaSmokers.com. That's BigPoppaSmokers.com. We are back with more Meathead Goldwyn in 20 seconds. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Get in the smoke. Call 877-448-0433 to get on the air. Now, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. 216-220-0966. Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com if you want to jump in tonight. Meathead Goldwyn from AmazingRibs.com joining us. There he is, right there in Chicago, Illinois.
You know, while we were in commercial break there,
Yep.
There was some conversation in the chat room that stimulated a few thoughts. Of course, there's another way to go about this, and that is inject.
Well, that was my thing. So as you were saying,
Inject.
salt on the bigger cuts of meat and more salt on the pork.
Absolutely.
So I was going to say, is it wacky to say, hey, what if I just make a salt water solution and just jam it down in that butt and fill it up? Or that big piece of meat, that whole packer.
I don't know what Dave Buska's formulations are and whether there's salt involved in there, but generally, you know, brines are in the 4 to 6% range after they filter down in, maybe as little as 2%. Dave might have a real good insight on this, but absolutely, just make up a salt brine. I have a few brine recipes for injection that are just basic salt and water that work really well, and get that salt down. You want salt in there. Now, the one exception, and this is another reason why you want to leave salt out, is there are people on salt-restricted diets. And if you leave the salt out of the rub and you know you've got somebody coming over with a salt-restricted diet, you can still put a flavorful spice rub on there without putting a lot of salt in there. But the fact is even if you're on a salt-restricted diet, if you do the math in preparing a meat, if you're using, say, a half a teaspoon per pound, which is a good number, that will penetrate and season throughout. Half a teaspoon pound, when you do the amount recommended, how many milligrams per day, it's way below your limit. It's like 20% of your daily limit. So it's not a huge amount. It's manageable. There's another really interesting aspect to this discussion, and that is the slather. A lot of people in barbecue love to put down a layer of mustard.
Do people really still do that anymore?
I don't know.
I thought that was kind of a fad. I don't think people really do that anymore.
I don't know. Forgive me. I don't hang out at a lot of competitions.
I don't either. I just don't hear. I used to hear about it all the time. The slather. I know Melissa Cookston was really big on showing that when she was on TV a lot. I will use on my beef, and I use it on both beef and pork. I use the old Worcestershire bath, and then I put the rub down there, and it makes a nice little paste.
Sure.
And I've never been a big fan of it.
In the Carolinas, vinegar is popular.
Yeah, Dave Bosca goes to a lot of competitions, and he says they're still using mustard. Dave Bosca says they're still using mustard.
Okay, yeah, I thought so. Well, what's interesting is mustard is essentially water-based. I mean, there's wine and vinegar, but they're water-based solutions. And salt dissolves in water. It doesn't dissolve in oil. So I've always advocated using oil because a lot of the spices and herbs are oil soluble. So if you're going to salt, you want to salt first where it hits the surface of the meat. Either you put down your Worcestershire or vinegar or mustard, water-based glue, or just salt it because the moisture comes out of the meat immediately. Yep. It's like, monsters. They come out and they grab the salt and they pull it in. And but then if you've put an oil base down and then you sprinkle a salty rub on top, the salt's going to have trouble getting through that oil because it's not oil soluble. Now, that oil is going to dissolve the oils and the herbs and the spices and help them spread around the surface. So what I'm recommending is you salt the meat if you want to wet it in some fashion first. Wet it meaning water. Either just leave it naked and let the water from the meat, it'll hold the salt, or Worcestershire like you suggested, or mustard or vinegar or something to get the salt dissolved so it gets moving down in. Then you come back a couple hours later or overnight, hit it with your oil and then your spices and herbs, which are going to dissolve in the oil. But remember, dissolving in the oil is just going to pretty much spread them around. oil on top of a saturated sponge of water, which is what meat is not going to penetrate. Oil and water don't mix.
Does oil decrease the amount of smoke absorption at all?
No. Wet surfaces, oil or water, not to my knowledge, I should say. Nothing I know is factual. Everything I know is thoughtful. To my knowledge, water and oil are both going to attract their wet surfaces. And if you think of smoke as two basic halves, little tiny particles and gases, they both stick to wet surfaces, water and oil. I don't know whether they stick more to water or oil than the other. Doc Blonder might know, but they're going to stick. So a wet surface, which is why I used to say, as everybody does, if you're looking, you ain't cooking, don't open the lid. But actually, spritzing your meat keeps it wet and attracts smoke. So it's actually a very good technique, and as we've talked before, it really doesn't affect the cooking time because it's the temperature of the outside of the meat that cooks the inside of the meat, not the air temperature so much.
Meathead Goldwyn joining us here on the show, AmazingRibs.com, his website. Check it out if you haven't yet, and you're probably one of the only few that haven't stumbled across it in some form or fashion. Meathead, anything else in regards to the salt and the rub stuff before we get into artisan meats?
Well, there were a couple other odds and ends that, chefy types often do something called blooming their spices. They will put the spices in a frying pan, either dry or with a little bit of oil, and heat it. And that extracts the oils in the spices and herbs and makes them more potent, more rich. And so that's something to think about. I haven't done much of it with barbecue, but of course, if you oil the meat and then you put your herbs and spices, put it in a warm oven, it's sort of a blooming process. But it's something to think about. And one of the other topics is there's some debate over whether you should rub a rub or just sprinkle it. And the surface of the meat may look smooth, but it's far from smooth. It's jagged, it's got cuts. There's tubes that are open holes of fibers. And if you rub, you will push that spice and herb mix slightly below the surface far better than it will on its own through chemical and physical reactions. So rubbing the surface does push the rub down ever so slightly. And the only other thing I was thinking about is plastic wrap. Every time I wrap my meat in plastic and then I unwrap it, half the rub is on the plastic wrap.
I know. I don't understand. What's up with people doing that?
I mean, health laws require you do it in a restaurant because you just can't have bare exposed meat in a restaurant where they could come into contact with vegetables or bare hands or something. But if you're careful and you're working at home, you're in a competition, I just don't wrap it.
Maybe it's because it, make the whole refrigerator smell like the rub.
Oh, it smells so good. And, so much of what we love about barbecue, you walk into a competition and the air, it's just an aphrodisiac. Is there a better smell in the world?
No.
And it's the wood, but the rub and the meat. It's the three of them mixing together, dancing, playing the violin and the bass and the flute all together. What a great sensation.
It is, it's romanticism at its height. All right.
I'm just a romantic.
Yeah, of course you are. All right, we got 5 minutes left here, and I wanted to hit on maybe even just at a high level this point, maybe we can come at it a little bit more in depth. I've noticed ever since that very first, well, I guess it's like the fourth episode, but, the first Pitmasters where Myron Mixon and Tuffy Stone and Harry Sue were traveling to competitions and, what is now the gold standard of all these Pitmasters that have since been reincarnated, which, by the way, from what I've seen recently in the barbecue media, John Marcus has nothing to do with that shit anymore, and he's despising the show that he has made, by the way, nevertheless. Myron Mixon talked about Wagyu brisket, and I got to get this brisket, and all of a sudden it was Wagyu brisket, and it's all the rage, and all of a sudden it's now it's that, and there's multiple purveyors and or producers of Wagyu. You have the Snake River Farms, you got the Strew Branch, you got this guy and that guy. You have Carabuta pork, you got Berkshire, you got Compart. In the pork portion, now it's ribs. I know there's like Smart Chicken, and I don't know if there's like artisanal chicken yet, but we're probably
Smart Chicken. I've never heard of Smart Chicken.
Smart Chicken. So I don't know if we're close to artisanal chickens yet, but 3 out of the 4. I mean, if you're in competition, man, you are laying out some fat. Can I say fat cash for just 3 of the 4 meats? Big time money. So now the expense of competing has become even more, and I think you have to got to spend it because you know the guys on the upper echelon are spending it, so you don't want to put yourself at a disadvantage. And perhaps I went so far to say last week that the judges are now becoming perhaps unknowingly partial to the higher-end meats, so now you're triple screwed if you're just a guy like me that would go to Sam's or BJ's or whatever and get your meats. So do you think, and have you found that these artisan meats are worth the money, and are they helping? Is this the trend to competition as we know it going forward?
Yes and yes.
Oy vey.
Yeah. The one who really wants to speak profoundly on this subject is Sterling Ball of Big Poppa Smokers. He has told me, and profoundly and accurately, I think, the barbecue competition is becoming a rich man's sport.
Yes.
And ain't that the truth? If you can't afford to take off on a Thursday and drive all day Friday and set up tent, pay the entry fees, and buy Carabuta pork and Wagyu beef, you're just not going to finish in the money. And even if you do finish in the money, you're barely going to cover your expenses. It's gone beyond what it originally was. And, I'm not authoritative on the subject. I don't go to many competitions. I don't judge much anymore. I don't compete. But it's clearly makes huge sense. If I were to compete, I would be going for, at the outset, before I do anything, the finest quality raw materials I can get, which means Wagyu brisket and Carabuta pork and the best freshest chickens I can grab, and so on and so on. And I would get Penzeys spices, and I would just load it up, because as long as I'm here, I might as well go for the gold. It's just that's the way it's going to be, unless, and I think I've heard Sterling talk about this sort of thing, some sort of a competition where you come in, you pay your entry fee, you're handed a Weber Smoky Mountain, you're handed a brisket, pork shoulder, and a slab of ribs and a half a chicken, and that's all you get, and now go at it, and everybody's on the same grounds. Maybe that's the way it could go, it should go, or somebody should do. But you're absolutely, anybody who's tasted Wagyu brisket knows it's measurably better than standard grocery store brisket.
So obviously the devil's advocate in me, after I make one side, I immediately have to go into contradiction mode. In the end, regardless of what you have, can't the guy that knows how to cook the best provide a more succulent and superior product regardless of the purveyor that they are buying?
That's important. But so much of the moisture in a brisket, everybody who's cooked brisket, and I think every one of your listeners knows that moisture in brisket and in all meats. Somebody in the chat room was asking earlier about my article on resting meat. Meat moisture is so much more than the water in the meat. It's the melted collagens, it's the melted fats, the rendered fats. It's also your saliva. The moisture you get in meat. So brisket in particular, the moment you slice it, it starts drying out. And between the time you put it in your clamshell and run it to the turn-in and wait for... It's just getting worse and worse and worse. And, it goes fast. Ribs are a different story. So, if you can get fat into the... I was waiting for that. I paused waiting for that. I'm learning you, Greg.
That's right.
If you can get fat, those little fibers of striations of marbling down into the brisket, you're adding moisture and you're, I think, increasing your chances to win. It's just really, and no matter how well you manage your fire, how good your spice mixes are, it's hard to overcome that succulence of fat.
That's right. Meathead Goldwyn is the creator of AmazingRibs.com. You can find him at that website. And you can find him here every Tuesday, the second of Tuesday of each month. Meathead, as always, the pleasure was mine, and we will see you again in May.
Always good to be with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
There he is, Meathead Goldwyn. Ta-ta for now. TTFN, as the kids say these days. Yeah, baby. So Meathead making claims that the meat is indeed giving people the upper hand, or perhaps a leg up on the competition, as it were. Another great 2 segments with Meathead, and me screwing up a portion of that as well. Sorry. Folks, the longest-running sponsor of the show is the BBQ Guru, located in Warminster, Pennsylvania. The BBQ Guru is the creator of automatic pit temperature control devices. If you're looking into this, why would you look from anybody else that makes these things? These are the creators of the technology. If you're not familiar with how these work, I don't get into the minutia here on the show, but imagine a product that allows you to set your pit temperature, and one set keeps it running at that set temperature all the way through the cook. Sound too good to be true? It's not. This is real life. You can take advantage of this technology today. Now, maybe you're a busy working professional like me, or perhaps you are constantly on the run with the kids doing errands, and you just don't have the time to sit around and tend those pit temps. I get it. The Guru allows you to throw on a couple slabs of ribs, a pork butt, a brisket. You're off to do whatever it is you need to get done. The Guru maintains that pit temperature you set it at. Number of different models to choose from. Go to the website, check it out, see what's best for you. Maybe you're just looking for that cruise control. You don't need all the geek stuff and the multiple cooker use, so forth. Yeah, that's fine. You might want to check out the Party Q at $149 for most cookers. The Party Q, the easiest point of entry into the pit temperature control device realm. It's self-contained, runs on AA batteries, can go from cooker to cooker to cooker. It's just your outfit. Now, maybe you're on the other side of that spectrum. You want to run 2 cookers off of 1 controller. You want to see the internal temperatures of 3 or 4 meat at the same time. Procom 4 Wireless is the one that you actually, it's called the CyberQ Wi-Fi, ladies and gentlemen. Procom 4 Wireless if you're in 1997, folks. CyberQ Wi-Fi runs off your hotspots. It's zone hotspot. As I said, you can control 2 cookers, multiple internal temperatures of meat. And if you have it on your smartphone, you have the app on your smartphone or tablet or netbook or laptop, you don't even have to get out of bed and go outside anymore to make the adjustments. Make them right there on your device. You can ramp up the pit temp. You can ramp down the pit temp. You can monitor your temperatures right there. You're all set to go. Do yourself a favor. Head on over to the website, thebbqguru.com. Check out their products. If you have any questions about what to order, call them directly, 800-288-GURU. They will make sure you're outfitted with exactly what you need to get you up and running right out of the box. Again, 800-288-GURU, or call or visit the website, thebbqguru.com. The BBQ Guru, a breakthrough in barbecue technology. We're back to wrap the first hour right after this. Stick around.
Big name interviews, advice on cooking brisket and ribs, and the only host willing to share his honest opinion on all things important in the world of barbecue. It's the Barbecue Central Show.
All right, welcome back. And boy, have we... Sounds level. No variance. All right. Yeah, I know the bump back from the real professional guy is a little hot, but I can't control. I mean, I can control it, but I'm not going to ride the level. Everything else should be all right, I guess, tonight. So keep an ear on that, if you will. I would appreciate that. Maybe I have isolated the culprit of the hot and cold over the last few months. I appreciate your patience getting me through that. Thanks again to Meathead Goldwyn for joining me the last two segments. We will reload for the second hour. Lots to get to there as well. Especially old people lighting barbecues in their homes to stay warm. That doesn't end well. Stick around. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central show right here on the Barbecue Central Network. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Chad Hayden with Moonshiner Barbecue's 19th annual Jack Daniel's World Barbecue Champion, and this is Barbecue Central.
From my heart and from my hand, why don't people understand my intention?
Happy to have you aboard here for the really big barbecue show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan. So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude!
Succulent fish, what?
He ate 54 wieners.
But listen, Lavernius, shake a face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Ooh, top men.
All right, just like that, we are into the second hour. John Dawson, Kobe Chicken, it's all the rage. Also weighing in, I kid you not, I was at a comp. I told a buddy to claim that he had Kobe Chicken for his People's Choice entry. They believed him. Dude came in like second place. Wow. Kobe Chicken. This chicken comes from Kobe, Japan, along with my beef. Oh, let's see. Just reading a couple emails. No winner on the sauce thing from Suckle Busters, so if you want it, just go ahead and shoot me a quick email and put in the subject line BBQ Fork Neck. BBQ Fork Neck, and you can get the Suckle Busters honey competition glaze, taking it to a whole nother level, as they say. All right, still to come on the show tonight, Matt Dalton from Left Coast Q and Roger and Rod Livingston of R&R BBQ Team to go over their respective wins. The 2015 Sam's Club Series rolled into Salt Lake City, Utah this past weekend. This was a local qualifying event sending the top 6 teams to the regional final that will take place in Las Vegas on April 25th, so about 2 weeks' time. Actually, that'll be a week from this coming... 2 weeks. Those 6 teams moving on, and we will talk to them here in about 23 minutes or 33 minutes. R&R BBQ Team with a 675 and almost 4/10 taking it. Team America Reserve Grand number 3 show sponsor, good guy, Big Poppa Smokers, Sterling Ball with a 666, almost 669. Phil and Lou BBQ number 4, Backdraft Barbecue 5th, and rounding out the 6th place and moving on to the regional final in Las Vegas, Chicken Butt BBQ Utah. So there are your top 6 going on to the regional finals. Again, in 2 weeks' time. The points discrepancy from 1st to 6th, another fairly large one, about 12 points or so, 11.9 points or so. So R&R having a very good outing. So did Team America, and then dropped off a little bit down 3rd through 6th. As I mentioned, the next Sam's Club event will be this coming weekend, April 18th. That is in Fort Collins, Colorado. So going up in elevation, as the few have been already so far. So if you're going to be up there, bring a little extra wood, bring a little extra oxygen, and bring all your spices and rubs with you so you can try and get those last 6 spots going out to the Vegas regional final that'll be a week after that. Good luck to all those teams competing in Fort Collins, Colorado. Yeah. All right, I mentioned it on the way out of the first hour. We were going to talk about it. You know, this kind of headline really brings me down in a bad way. Not that you could be down in a good way, I guess. Elderly couple died of carbon monoxide poisoning after lighting a barbecue to warm their house in a power cut.
Get that big stuff out of here.
Also, it's going to sound like I'm coming after England's. I'm not coming after England's. I mean, my England Centralites know that I am pro-England's. I love it. I love the music. I love the people. I love the food. All that. I love the fact that they're really into the competition barbecue scene. I don't remember the last time I've done a story on this show in the Americas about elderly couples or moderately elderly or youths lighting their grills inside to keep warm. Okay? So that's number one. I have done roughly 4 or 5 stories with these people in the Englands. Do you remember the lady? Like, was it a year or 2 ago? The lady that she went outside to bring in the grill into her flat in some part of the UK because her clothes dryer broke, and she was folding the laundry. Right? She was folding the laundry. The dryer broke. So how am I going to dry the laundry? Well, I'll just chase out to the garden and bring in the grill, fire it up, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, well, meanwhile, as the heat and the gas that you can't see or taste is floating up into the rest of the house, kids and adults are napping. Yeah, well, they almost die from carbon monoxide poisoning. Yeah, well, no kidding. You're inside. As luck were to have it, or not luck, this couple in England, Patrick and Marianne Charles, lit the barbecue as their heat was cut off. Grandparents choked on carbon monoxide fumes in their conservatory. The couple, 78 and 74 years old, respectively, lay deceased and otherwise expired for 16 days before they were found. 16 days. East Sussex coroner recorded verdicts of accidental death. And it reads like this. An elderly couple died of carbon monoxide poisoning after lighting a barbecue in their home to keep warm during a power cut, an inquest heard. Grandparents Patrick and Marianne Charles, 78 and 74, were without heating during a blackout on a cold November night last year. The couple, who had been married 53 years, sat down in their conservatory in Eastbourne, East Sussex, with a glass of wine each, and fired up the barbecue to heat the room. What? The conservatory quickly filled with smoke, and within minutes, the couple were unconscious after choking on the fumes. The couple lay dead for 16 days before their son, Andrew Charles, raised the alarm on December 11th, and police searched the property. Hastings Magistrates Court heard maintenance work by the UK power networks caused the power cut, the inquest was told. Mr. Charles said his parents often went on holiday abroad. Neighbors said the pair kept themselves to themselves, so it was not unusual for them to keep without weeks of contact with anybody else. The son's statement to the hearing read, "They loved their holidays, faithful friends, and their grandchildren. They were happy and in love after 53 years of marriage. Also, they're not fans of barbecue anymore.
Get that big stuff out of here.
I mean, if I've told you once, I've told you 7 times. We want to grow the art and sport of barbecue and grilling. The passion, the desire, all this good stuff. That's why I say don't go out and buy the crappy $70 Brinkman bullet smoker with no vent adjustments on the bottom and no vent on the top to control draft, because you're going to have a really crappy product that's going to turn into a planter and end up on your tree lawn within 30 days. And then you're out. Screw barbecue. I'm done with that. It's impossible. Well, yeah, you got a crappy piece. Same thing here. I mean, this couple, 78 and 74 years old, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, they were perhaps getting ready to have, little get-down session. Yeah? Hey, Marianne, I know it's cold up in the house. I know it's cold up in the flat here. Why don't you pour us a couple glasses of the finest Chardonnay? I'm going to go fire up the grill so we can stay warm. I mean, it sounded like they might be getting ready to have a little get-on time, if you know what I mean, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. That's what it sounds like to me. Little get-on time. But hey, you live and learn. Now you're going to know. Next time the power goes out, England. Is this thing on? England. Next time the power goes out in the cold and you're married or you have a lover, or you can go rent a pros. Take the clothes off, get under blankets, and get around each other for a little bit of the human heat. Don't light the grill. Bad idea. People die over that. Literally, people die over that. Matt Dalton coming up out of the break, believe it or not. Public service announcement from my friend and yours, the guy who fixed this ring right there, Stephen DiFranco of Stephen DiFranco Jewelers. Booyah. Folks, maybe you didn't know, Mother's Day coming. Don't screw it up like you did Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day, all that stuff. Visit Stephen DiFranco's website if you're not local here in Cleveland, StephenDiFranco.com. That's StephenDiFranco.com. Pick out a watch, pick out a ring, pick out necklaces, anklets, bracelets. He's got a bunch of other specialty stuff that you probably never even heard about that he can get you deals on. You call him, 440-943-2700. That's 440-943-2700. Tell him what you found. Well, ask him for him by name. When somebody answers the phone, say, hey, is this Steve? No, this is not Steve. I need Steve. All right. I'll get Steve. Steve comes on the phone, say, hey, Steve, I'm a barbecue brother or sister. I listen to Greg every Tuesday. He tells me to call you. I'm finally calling you. Here's what I'm looking at. What can you tell me? He's going to ask you a bunch of questions. He's going to make sure he's putting you in the right piece of jewelry, making sure we're fitting budgets and we're emoting feelings that are proper, all that good stuff, because he wants to take care of you this time, next time, the time after that, all the way through your life, for crying out loud. That's what he wants. Customers for life. That's what we're trying to get here at Stephen DiFranco's. Again, the website, StephenDiFranco.com, 440-943-2700. 440-943-2700. That is my man, Stephen DiFranco of Stephen DiFranco Jewelers. All right, we are back with Matt Dalton of Left Coast Q coming up out of the break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Radio Network studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Radio Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. This portion of the Barbecue Central Show being brought to you by Green Mountain Grills. Used mine this weekend, did you? Manufacturers of some of the best pellet cookers on the market today. If you are looking for a big cooker to house a lot of food, they got one for you. How about a medium-sized cooker? Because you're not as big as me, they got you covered there too. Something to take on tailgates. Yeah, they got that too. Even ones you can power through the inverter or the car charger in your car. They can also supply you with premium pellets as well. Check them out at greenmountaingrills.com. I love mine. You could love your own as well. That's greenmountaingrills.com. All right, my next guest, fresh off a win this past weekend in Wildomar, California. Here to recap the event and the win this past weekend is the Pitmaster of Left Coast Q. Help me rejoin in welcoming Matt Dalton back to the show. Matt, how are you, buddy?
Good, Greg. How are you doing?
Doing absolutely fabulous, brother, man. Appreciate you taking the time and joining the show this evening. So, been a little bit since we've had you on, and wanted to kind of get you back up and, I guess, relive this past weekend. But, perhaps before we do that, you've been on the show before in Grand Championship style. And, I don't know if this show does justice enough. I'm certainly not singling you out, but I appreciate the fact that you come with a honest tone each and every time, whether it be on the air or through the Facebooks and so forth. So, you've seen success. You've seen a lot of success quick, and then you've also seen the other side of the barbecue bitch. And from your perspective, how are you able to balance where the winning is, and then kind of the elevator down, if you will, and then starting to take the ride back up?
Oh well, it's a tough road. I'll tell you that, especially after doing well. In 2013 we autoed to the Jack. We won $8,000 that year. I mean, great year, standout year. We only cooked 24 contests, and we finished 7th in the country. I still feel we're that kind of a team, but we had switched cookers, and we just couldn't get it to work, to be honest with you. And it didn't work for us, so we went back to our old cooker, and everything kind of came back in line. So I guess that just proves to ourselves, and we try to make things easier for ourselves, okay? But we're not there for easy. We're there to win. So even if it's a little bit harder, a little bit more, effort, we need to do it wins, and that's what we did. We went back to what won for us. So
what was the cooker? What was the cooker that you started with?
Our Jack's Old South. It was built by a guy, Jim Maxey, I believe, Southern Georgia. We picked it up, and we were cooking on that from the day we started competition barbecue. So we went away from that, and
what did you go to?
We went to an old Hickory Ace BP model, and it was a convection cooker that runs on charcoal. That's a lot less airflow. This Jack's Old South is a big pig stick burner. And that's really like. A friend of mine, Luton, Smitty, he says, Luton Booty, he says, "You got an old soul, Matt." I'm like, so many people told us to go back to it. It's unbelievable, but you're hard-headed. You want to make things work your way, and we learned the hard way. You know what I mean? But we know what to put in the box, and this last weekend proved that.
Can you specifically go back and point to the fact that it was, really cooker related, or were you also dabbling in any type of a profile situation as well?
Maybe somewhat. I changed a few things, but when you start, it's like you start tweaking one thing, and it's like you don't want to get too far away from center line, But we went back to it in at the end of December in Vegas, and we finished 3rd overall there. So. Yeah, I felt like, boom, and we hadn't cooked on it in a year, or over that. And then we finished 5th or 6th at the Guinea Pig, and then we went to Havasu. We got no calls, but finished 11th of 97. And I looked at some of these tables, and we hit, a couple bad tables there, and I'm not going to take away. But I think I had cooked one of my better briskets there in Havasu. And it tasted very similar this weekend. It was first place. So, you know, I don't think the other cooker is a bad cooker at all. I think it's fantastic. I think the company's fantastic. The people that are behind it, great guys. If I was going to open a restaurant, that's the cooker that would be in it.
Matt Dalton, the pitmaster of Left Coast Q, joining me here on the show. The website Left Coast, letter Q, if you want to check it out here while we're talking. Matt, let's go ahead and take a look back at Wildomar, and I believe, if memory serves me correctly, the last time I had you on the show, this was the competition you won, right?
Absolutely. It was our first GC.
So this was like almost kind of like a back-to-back situation, right? Yeah, all right.
Well, it had been a couple years in between, you know. That was 2012, I believe.
Semantics.
But, you know, yeah, that was the first time we won after 7 reserve grands. And then, you know, after this long-ass stretch, now, boom, we're on again. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wildomar's holds a little special spot in my heart. So.
As well it should. So as you look back over the weekend, you know, you've been, you know, kind of revving up to this point. You know, was there anything on the outset that kind of had you feeling like this was going to be the break through the glass weekend, or anything out of the ordinary that you had to contend with that you didn't plan for?
No, not really. Just, you know, a lot of thinking about what am I going to do to get back on top. Really had a lot of time to think, and actually I had one. I usually cook 4 pork butts, and I had a 2-pack that was 27 pounds, which was probably the biggest 2-pack I've ever cooked. So you could imagine, like, over 13-pound, you know, pork butts. Well, one of them has this gigantic money muscle on it, which actually was the one I ended up turning in. It was huge, biggest one I had ever cooked. So it just ended up, that part of it, the pork, really ended up being a really good piece. That I just, it was really moist, so it was almost tenderloin-like. So the brisket was really good. The SRS, you know, Anelli usually hooks it up really good with that. But nothing really out of the ordinary. I didn't really feel too good about the ribs, of course, and they're, you know, those got called. But the chicken. Okay, go. I didn't want to get ahead of you.
No, I was going to say, I mean, when you look at the results, the only thing that you probably shouldn't have felt good about was the chicken, and you probably felt pretty good about that too, I imagine.
I absolutely did. And I know, I mean, I didn't look at the sheet, but I kind of, my buddy knows, like, when he dropped the tray, the teams that were on that table are really good chicken cooks, and no one really did very good. And I don't want to call it the table of death, but kind of, you know, maybe they just didn't score it very high. I didn't like it. I thought it was really good. I actually took, when we were cleaning up, I took a little tray out. There was 5 pieces left, and I should have took a picture of it in the sun. I mean, it looked just as good as it did when I turned it in, but I threw it in the trash and moved on. We had won the contest. So. When
you don't get a call in chicken, I know a lot of cooks that I have on say, man, you get that first call in chicken, it sets the mood. Does it feel like you're stumbling a little bit, or is it easy to just pass through?
Absolutely. It was really weird. I was standing next to this guy, Dave Malone, veteran cook, and he had judged that day, and he goes, oh my gosh, that was a really weird set of chicken calls. But one of them that stood out in my mind was Thank the Lord, who was a reserve grand. So that was in my mind. I know he was up there. So, but it was just, you know, kind of all over the place in a way. So yeah, chicken, I was like, oh my gosh, because I felt it was really good, you know.
So then you get ribs, second in ribs overall. So, you know, only one place better than that. Did you feel that the ribs were on point?
I thought they were cooked really good. And the flavor, I had changed one little thing during the wrap, and they came out a lot better. So I was happy with them. And I had called my teammate Mo the night before, Thursday night. I was like, I don't think these ribs are too good, man. So of course, that's what happens every time, that kind of karma type thing, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, coincidence or.
Usually when the pitmaster doesn't like it, that's when you're going to get your best scores, right?
Yeah.
So you win pork first, you win brisket first. So 2 of the 4 you win. The third one you get second. And you don't know where you're at with chicken. I mean, when you don't get the call, do you just do like most pitmasters and think you shit the bed on chicken, or do you think you're just right there, kind of just outside the top 10?
I was just hoping we were right outside, but I mean, with 2 first place and a second place, you know, and then he had called Reserve Grand and said they had a score over 700, and thank the Lord had already had 3 calls. So, and he called him for Reserve Grand. So I'm kind of thinking, I've been to enough of these contests. I was damn well hoping it was us. You know.
So you get the call for overall grand, again, the 2 first place, the second, and, the chicken. Some of the emotions that kind of get to wash back over you as, you revisit the championship circle again.
Absolutely. It's just a humbling experience to not a whole year was a wash. And then finally, we've only done a couple this year, and it was still like a few more little tweaks, and finally, it hit. And it's a humbling experience to stand on the top again after you rode the so-called barbecue elevator. And I didn't make that term up. I think it's Mike Hayes might have made that up. I'm not sure, but that's what I like to call it, because it really is, and it's one humbling ride.
Matt Dalton, pitmaster of Left Coast Q, joining me here on the show, kind of recapping the Wildomar experience this past weekend where they took grand champion. I was talking with Mike Lindley a couple shows ago, Matt, and
Absolutely.
He had said, hey, I got my first grand, and then, of course, he was on the show Tuesday. He went back the following week and won again, so he had 2 in a row, and I'm like, man, you're riding the wave, and he's like, yeah, well, now I've gone from what do I need to do to win to what the hell did I just do so I can keep winning? Are you in a position now where, you've won enough that you're going to be able to just go back and be in that spot where you think you're going to be able to repeat at this point, or is there still a little bit of, wondering?
Oh, God, Greg. I mean, this contest, okay, well, there's a lot leading up to Nevada. We've won chicken 2 years in a row there. So, I mean, I know nothing was wrong with our chicken, just whatever, that's barbecue. So, not changing a thing with that. And actually, I had changed my pork and my brisket boxes, so actually I feel probably more dialed than ever. I'm not trying to jinx myself here, but exactly what he's saying, that I'm not changing anything. We're just gonna try to do the same thing and hope for the best, But we were pretty close to, we had some. We cracked over 700, which was really good, and we've done well in Nevada before at that contest in Mesquite. So, and it's a very nice payday. So I'd really love to win it.
So it looks like there was also an ancillary category during this competition in beef ribs, which you were able to ping off a nice 180 on beef ribs. So not factored into the KCBS portion of it, I would imagine. But what kind of beef ribs? I mean, I'm a beef rib guy. I mean, you see the big like beef chuck ribs, and then you see the other ones that kind of look like a little bit bigger than baby back type beef ribs. Which ones do you cook?
They were the beef chuck, and basically you can find these very easily if you ask the right people. We just got these at our local Stater Brothers, which is a Southern California chain. You just go in there and you tell them you want uncut short ribs like that you would use for braising. And they have a ton of meat on the top. They have about an inch and a half of meat on them. And I've been practicing those beef ribs. I don't know. I had probably done 6 or 8 racks of those beef ribs before I did that contest. And then I had that kind of idea because I like whiskey, So I got the glasses and I put the big giant ice cubes in there, and then we got the airline size, whiskey bottles, and laid it out kind of like if we were going to turn it in at the Jack or something, except with the exception of 7, I could only fit 6 on the thing. I wanted to do it so many different ways, but when you have the meat in front of you, and then to lay it out, it's much harder than what's in your mind, you know what I mean, until you build it. So it really looked cool. I'm just glad all the judges liked it, and we got rewarded for it.
So how do you go about cooking at them? If you could do like a little beef rib cooking class, I know a lot of people get intimidated.
They're very similar to pork. So I mean, basically, I cook those to my brisket profile, set the bark, use my brisket wrap, meat side down like if I was cooking pork, till they were probe tender. Pulled them out of there, let them air dry, let that bark reset, hit them with sauce, cut them.
That was it.
That's it.
Do you cook them at a different temperature?
What's that?
You cook them at a different temperature in the pit?
Nope. They were on the pit right next to the pork rib. Well, because I was running them side by side, I had eight racks of pork ribs on there too. So I mean, I was fitting those into the timeline, so they had to go on. What time did I think I put them on at 9 o'clock or 8? Yeah, I mean, I tried to time them out to where they only sat for maybe a half hour or less, just to kind of, because there's a lot of meat on those.
Yeah.
Just kind of let it rest a little bit and let all that juice come back.
What temperature do you run the pit at?
Between 275 and 300. Right. We usually when we first start out and have the big meats on, we're pretty high, rocking and rolling. But I like to drop it down to right around there, 275 when I put the ribs on. Everything's on the top shelf. It's a water cooker, so there's a bottom shelf and there's a top shelf. But I run everything on the top.
Matt Dalton joining me.
Convection.
Yeah, Matt Dalton joining me here on the show. Left Coast Q Pitmaster. Matt, if I could ask you one more question here before we wrap it up. You had mentioned in the pork, you had 2 huge butts, and one of them had a tremendous money muscle associated with it. So, I hate to show my ass here and not know where the rule is, but are you allowed to cut out the money muscle now and cook it separately, or does it still have to kind of like remain attached, or how does that go about?
No, you have to leave it attached, I believe, until it's cooked. But this one, I haven't changed my process since this whole thing has started. What I have done sometimes is if it's gotten done, I have gone in there. You can go in now and cut it off and leave the rest of the butt going. Which basically it's if you have 2 really good butts, then you don't really need any more pork. That's kind of what it's trying to make it cheaper. But like this one, I didn't cook it any differently. I had them all wrapped up. When that money muscle was done, I pulled the whole butt off. Because I had 3 other butts on there. So, and I knew that one was like I said, it was the biggest one I ever had. It was almost a foot long.
Is that what you turn in though? I mean, is it just money muscle for you, or you do some pulled and some chopped and stuff? I do
2 different kinds of meat.
What do you? I'm asking just for myself, but what temperature do you take the money muscle to?
I take it to it's not really. I take it to a probe field roughly like maybe 190-ish, 192.
Yeah.
But I go for the feel once it starts getting loose. You can almost grab them once they get. Once you've cooked a lot of butts, you start knowing. But I've stood over a lot of famous shoulders, and watched. So, yeah, it's all by feel, really. Getting it around there. But it's all. I really use just a thermopin by like feel, and once it starts getting loose, I always let it go a little bit longer, because every meat tenses up. So that's my theory on it. I really do cook by feel, but it's a little over 190.
And you're going to be at Mesquite next?
Mesquite, Long Beach, Bakersfield. Yeah, those 3 are that starts May 2nd. Yeah, we're gonna hit it hard there in May and June. We full schedule every weekend in June. So, yeah.
A lot of cooks coming up.
Get it going.
There he goes. Matt Dalton is the pitmaster of Left Coast Q, just winning grand champion out at the Wildomar, California barbecue event. Matt, appreciate the time tonight. Congratulations again on the win. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right, Greg. Thanks very much. I just want one last thing. I want to thank all my sponsors: Big Poppa Smokers, Simply Marvelous Barbecue, Woodshed, and SRF.
All right, you got it. There he is. Matt Dalton, Left Coast Q, thanking his sponsors, is a good NASCAR. That's what people need, man. If you are on the show, if I ask you to come on the show and do a segment, and you're sponsored, leave yourself some time to shout them out. You know me, I'm sponsored. I mean, I can give myself time, but get them in, man. Come on, get them in. Who's this? Oh, yeah, right. Forget it. By the way, Matt Boer won the sauce contest. Matt, send me your shipping information. Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. All right, gang, if you are like me, it's stepping up the barbecue and grilling game. And what have I been talking to you about for weeks with this guy? It's Butcher Barbecue and the grilling oil. Who has tried them yet? Who has said, he's just sitting there yapping his mouth for 2.5 minutes about this stuff that he has never tried? But simply put, I'm in reorder mode at this point. I am now 100% through the butter-flavored grilling oil. I am now 100% through the steakhouse-flavored grilling oil. I am 85% away from, or I'm 85% through the chipotle flavor. Uh-oh. So I will reorder because I am a big believer in this product. I like it. I did ribs. That's how I finished the butter-flavored grilling oils, was putting them in the ribs during the wrap process. Dave, it worked exactly like he said it was. And I did notice, because before, when I would use the ribs, I have no access to this parquet that everybody but me has access to. I can't find it anywhere. No squeeze bottle butter for this guy. I use butter, like hand-rolled butter at the local market, and I cut it off. I set it down, and I flip over my rack, and I put the meat side down on the butter, and I cut up some more butter and put it on the bone side, and I wrap it up in foil and add my brown sugar and some other stuff. I noticed the mouthfeel and that texture difference that Dave talked about immediately. Now, maybe some of the less cultured palates in the house didn't notice, but flavor-wise and texture-wise, if nothing else has sold me on the grilling oil, believe me, everything else has. So this is just icing on the cake. It is the fact that this can replace that parquet stuff, the blue bottle, if you will. And let me tell you something. The best thing about grilling oil, as I've said each and every week over the last couple weeks, is it stays right out on the shelf, shelf stable. So you can see it, you're visually attracted to it, you keep it there by the stove, you keep it there by the oven, you can take it out with you on the grill, you can use it, it's great. Hook up with it now. Grilling oils from Butcher Barbecue. That's butcherbbq.com. That's butcherbbq.com. When you go to the website, go to products or store, I believe, and you'll see them featured right there at the very front. Hook up with multiples of each. You'll be happy that you did. All right, we are back with R&R BBQ Team as we recap the Sams. Stick around.
Big name interviews, advice on cooking brisket and ribs, and the only host willing to share his honest opinion on all things important in the world of barbecue. It's the Barbecue Central Show.
Who would have thought this music thing was going to go this far? I never asked for this. I never asked for this fast living, the women, the whiskey, craziness.
All right, we are back. 216-220-0966. Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. Thanks again to Matt Dalton for joining me on the show this past segment. This portion of the Barbecue Central Show brought to you by CookinPellets.com, your number one source for quality wood pellets. For all your pellet-driven cookers, visit CookinPellets.com for more information or to purchase. You can also visit Amazon.com to purchase as well. It's good folks over at CookinPellets.com. All right, helping me close the show out tonight, the team that took the latest Sam's Club local win in Salt Lake City this past weekend. They will head to the regional round in a few weeks to see how they stack up against the rest of the local qualifiers in hopes of moving on to Bentonville for the finals. Here to recap the win and the weekend, let's welcome Roger and Rod Livingston of R&R BBQ Team. Gents, how are we this evening? Thanks so much for joining me.
Great. How you doing today?
Doing absolutely fabulous. It's Roger and Rod Livingston of R&R BBQ. But these guys trying to squeeze in together. Are you guys twins or what?
Yeah, we are.
All right. Nice. I'm a twin, too. I'm sorry. I'm a twin, too. But you guys are more identical than not.
Yeah, I'm confused right now.
Yeah, I'm a fraternal twin, so I'm glad my brother isn't here. You just think that perhaps we weren't even related. That's how much we don't look alike.
Yeah, it's hard to tell in pictures sometimes.
Yeah, that's all right. All right, boys. So we had a weekend, did we, in Salt Lake City? Where are you guys based out of? Are you in the Utah area or what?
Yeah, we're downtown Salt Lake City.
I guess right off the top of my head, Salt Lake City doesn't necessarily jump out as a barbecue mecca that a lot of people would know. So maybe either Roger or Rod, you could kind of weigh in on where you see and feel barbecue in Salt Lake City right now.
Well, over the last 5-6 years, we probably get 3 or 4 good contests a year here with, teams of 30 apiece. Last couple of years, it's kind of died off a little bit. 5-6 years ago, it used to be pretty strong. Not real strong, not like Texas or California or Arizona. That's mainly where we started. I was cooking a lot of Arizona contests in Colorado and a few up in Idaho also.
But there's a lot of good teams here that are really coming along that have, several grand champions.
All right, Rod, if you could, maybe explain how you and Roger got into competition barbecue, maybe who introduced it to you, or was it just something that you saw on television, or how do you get into that mess?
Actually, my family from Missouri, Arkansas and such were pig farmers and stuff, and we'd go to family reunions. We'd eat pulled pork, catfish, hush puppies, that kind of stuff, so a lot of good Southern cooking. And so we've always had a taste for it. And exposed to, these old guys would cook all night and just wondering, what are those guys doing? We're just little boys, and we developed a liking to that. But we've always enjoyed cooking. And then in about 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, Pat's Barbecue was a good friend of ours, and I did a favor for him. And he said, hey, you got to take my big old smoker. I think it was I can't remember the name of it.
Oklahoma Joe's.
Oklahoma Joe's smoker. Here, take this home, use it. I did. My wife saw me with it, drinking a beer on the side of the garage, and she said, you're going to get one of these, aren't you? And we did.
So are you guys originally from Arkansas then?
No, we're 2 surfers from California. I was U.S. Boy Surfing Champion. Roger placed high in a lot of contests too, and we migrated to Utah. I had in '89, and Roger did about 5 years later.
And you guys have a barbecue restaurant out there.
Yeah, we've had a restaurant. Just April 2nd was our 2nd-year anniversary, and it's gone really well. It's, just incredible. We've almost outgrown our space, and right now we're having another location under contract. We're working on the designs on that.
Obviously, business is going well. Did you find Salt Lake City to be kind of an aggressive, wanting palate for some good barbecue out there?
Yeah, Pat's Barbecue, which was on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, he probably is the most notable one. And you've got your other chains here like Dickey's and Famous Dave's and stuff, but Pat's has pretty much been the leader the last few years. And then he's the one who kind of got us started also in contests, like Rodney said or whatever, and got us in a backyard contest, and then we went to one up in Snowbird. But just the last couple of years, and especially since we've opened up, there was nothing downtown for people to come in and eat at. So we've really been accepted well out here.
Rod, have you guys, I'm going to transition here, and I apologize, but, I'm terrible at segues. Did you guys do the Sam's Club events at all in previous years, or this is your first year into it?
No, we've done it before. We've been to the Nationals twice, so 2 out of 4 times we made it out of Las Vegas. The last 2 years we didn't. We had the shop going and weren't quite as focused as we should have been. Last year I didn't think we cooked our best. I think we ended up like 13th or 14th. But we did make it to the Nationals twice, and we ended up in the middle of the pack, kind of the mid-20s, I believe.
All right, so this past weekend you head out to Salt Lake City and take part in the local qualifiers. So top 6 teams move on. Roger, is this a position where you've seen success? You've made it to Nationals. You only have to be, well, not only, but you have to be 6 or better in order to move on to the regional round. Do you want to just get in the top 6 to move on, or you just want to go in and win?
2 weeks ago we cooked in Reno, and we ended up 7th overall. And because Rhythm and Q placed the week earlier, we were able to move up in that qualified us for Las Vegas. But last year we did win grand champion here in Salt Lake, so it's actually a back-to-back championships that we won.
So this is obviously, a nice place for you to cook, and you've been seeing some success there in Salt Lake. Going back to back, and is it at all nice to know? Because when you look through some of these Sam's locals, you get through, and maybe the regional isn't for like 5 months from now, and maybe you're not a team that competes a lot, so there isn't a lot of momentum to build on. But here, you've had your local, you're going to have the regional here in a couple weeks. I mean, obviously the final stretches out a little bit, but to have the first 2 under your belt, would you rather have it this close together, or do you mind if it's strung out a little bit over the course of the summer?
Well, I like the regional being pretty close. We used to do 15, 20 contests. We've been to the Jack a couple times. So we've done 15, 20 contests in a year. But, I don't know. I think we're better cooks than we were 2 years ago. From having the restaurant, we steadied the meat a little bit more. I think people, we did well pretty right off the bat. But I think from really studying the meat, we're better cooks now than we were then. We came back from last week or 2 weeks ago being 7th. And finished first this one, and another team said to us, hey, 2 weeks ago we know you finished 7th and you wouldn't let that happen again, meaning that we kind of got all the rust off the wheels and we're going to come on strong. And not really a complete effort to do that, but we did correct a lot of our mistakes, and we've done well in a lot of contests before, and we hope to do well in the regionals, and we really hope to make it back to the nationals again.
Roger, if you could take me back through the weekend and kind of tell me on a high level how you think the cook went, and if there was anything out of the ordinary that you guys had to contend with that you weren't planning on.
Everything went, for the most part, pretty well. One thing we did a little bit different this time, we had someone stay up and watch our smoker from 1 to 5 o'clock in the morning, which helped out quite a bit. We went to this contest really prepared. Usually, and this is typical, anyone that knows us or cooks around us, we're always running to the store, even though the Sam's Club was like 1.5 miles from our restaurant. We had to run back 2 or 3 times. But once we got settled in Friday night, everything was pretty good. Woke up in the morning, we fire up our smoker. We smoke on an East Texas smoker, and we've been using, they sponsor us, and we've been using their smoker ever since we started. But first thing right off the bat was our chicken, and when we're doing our chicken, how we work as a team together, I do all the long meats and Ronnie does the short meats. But when we're getting ready to turn on the chicken, I kind of noticed that it didn't quite have enough flavor on the bottom of the chicken. Cook it upside down, turn it over, put a little rub on there. But when I took a bite through the skin and started chewing a little bit, I realized that it seemed like the chicken didn't have enough flavor in the meat. So that's one of the little things that we were worried about. And then, of course, ribs. You never know how our ribs are going to go. 90% of the time, we end up pretty well on our ribs.
I resent that. My ribs turn out good a lot of times.
Yeah. No, I said they always turn out good.
First place ribs this weekend, right, Rod? There you go.
Oh, they were phenomenal. I mean, I was really happy with them. I didn't want to be too excited after the turn-in because you don't want to, eat crow afterwards. But I was really excited about them. And the week before I did well. I think I did 4th or 5th or something.
Right. The reason in Bentonville we got 7th, and my pork and brisket just weren't up to par. And usually it takes me one contest. Not Bentonville. Reno. It takes me a little bit to get back to that feel of the brisket, to know right when it's done, to know not overcook the pork, break it apart, perfect. So, I'll take the blame for Reno not going as good as we planned.
So, you guys are brothers, identical twin brothers, which is a whole different brother category. You are team members. You're on 2 different parts of the category spectrum. I have to imagine, as manly men around smoke and fire and potentially some adult libations at some point, has there ever been any type of chippiness between you guys? If somebody feels like the other has dropped the bag in some point?
Yeah, that happened out in Reno, and I kind of made it too big of a joke, and he didn't like it very much. But because I got, I think, a 4th and a 6th, and he got a 15th and 13th. And when they said, R&R, you're going to Vegas, I said, I'm taking somebody else. And
yeah, he thinks he's funny. Real funny, Rod. But we have a whole little thing we can go over about who's done what.
No,
so we're not going to.
Let's not go there.
So, I mean, obviously, there's
worms, buddy. Yeah, people that we used to cook before, we've tamed it down a little bit, but IB30 and those guys would say out of Arizona, like, how in the frig do you guys win contests when you're fighting all night long and then you still win? How do you do that? So that's just kind of the nature of fighting brothers and twins, and one being a lot better cook than the other.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so obviously we'll leave that to whoever's discretion on who the better one is, right? When it comes, so obviously, you guys have delineated the meats between each other. So, Roger or Rod, if you're not responsible for the other two meats, I mean, do you feel like you would still be able to do very well on those, or are you really just honed in on the two that you're responsible for, and that's where you feel best?
I think we can go back and forth. He's gone to California, where we're from, and competed down there with some big teams and ended up 3rd or 4th or 5th or something like that, just completely on his own. And I mean, we're both competent in all 4 meats, but we've saved a lot of fights of like not asking or jumping in, and that way each person has total control of the meat, as opposed to, I thought you were watching it. Don't tell me, So it just cuts down a lot of arguing.
Roger and Rod Livingston joining me here, the Pitmasters of R&R BBQ Team. Will you guys be doing anything prior to the regional final in Vegas, or are you guys tuned up right now and ready to go?
I think we're ready to go. We really don't do a lot of practice cook for some reason. It just doesn't work out for us. And, we have 8 grand champions, and we've never done very, very little practice cooks at homes. I'm just waiting to go to Vegas, and then I go to Indonesia on a surf trip that next Monday. So I'm getting excited to go.
Dude, you're a surfer for real, right?
Yeah, I was U.S. Boys Surfing Champion. I was 15.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So like sessions and waves and all this, that's terminology that you use like every day. Well, probably not in Salt Lake so much.
Yeah, barrel riding and tubed and dude and all that stuff.
Yeah, nice. All right. And you're a surfer too, right, Roger?
Oh, yeah. Rodney's done better. I'll admit that. He can surf a contest better than I can. I get all choked up.
Yeah, well, man, that's it's crazy. Surfers doing the barbecue thing in Salt Lake City and winning as well, and they're going to be heading to the regional finals in Las Vegas in just 2 weeks' time. But before I let you go, please plug the restaurant and anything else here before I turn you loose.
Sure, R&R BBQ. It's in Salt Lake City on 3rd South and 6th South, 300 West. And I want to thank our sponsor, East Texas Smoker. He's hauled equipment all over the United States for us, to the Sam's Nationals, the Jack Daniels. We're hauling our big smoker out to Las Vegas, and he's just been really good to us, and we appreciate it.
All right, again, this is Roger and Rod Livingston of R&R BBQ Team. Guys, really appreciate the visit tonight. Thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, buddy, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, and a shout out to our friend Matt at Left Coast.
Matt Dalton, baby, yeah! All right, guys, Thanks so much. There they are. Wow, man. Can I have them on each and every week? Energy! Hello! Let's bring it! Wow. They're bringing it strong tonight, boys. They're bringing it strong tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Roger and Rod. Surfers turned... I thought they said they grew up in Arkansas with pig farmers. No? Were they not pig farmers? Grandfathers were pig farmers. Maybe they were just visiting. All right, folks, are you interested in taking barbecue or smoked foods to the next level? Have you thought about starting a catering business, opening a food truck, or a restaurant? If you have answered yes to any of these questions, let Cookshack help you be successful. Register for Cookshack's Fast Eddie restaurant and catering class. It'll be held in July. This class is held at the Country Club in Ponca City, Oklahoma. Uses their FEC commercial kitchen. You will see how to cook on a Cookshack charbroiler, FEC 500, FEC 120, and an SM 160. All smokers used during the class will be available to purchase at a special rate for participants at that class. The class has a classroom portion and a hands-on portion. If you want to handle the meat, the rubs, the knives, this is a class for you. Each student will learn how to select proper meat cuts and trim the brisket, pork butt, ribs, and chicken. Other topics to be discussed include menu items, cook and hold techniques, food safety, brining, profitability, and yields. Also includes setup of a dinner service and then working the serving line for the patrons of the Country Club. The instructors for this legendary event are the legendary Fast Eddie Ed Morin, Barbecue Pitmaster TV show finalist Dave Bosco, Butcher Barbecue Competition Cooking Team, and Cookshack CEO President Stuart Powell, also the Cookshack Pitmaster of their competition team. Each student will receive a binder with class materials and supplies and other goodies to take home. It also includes 3 nights of hotel, meals, and a tour of the Cookshack's manufacturing facility. The class dates are July 13th and 14th. Class size is limited to 25 students, so sign up today. I think there's only like 15 left. So if you want to take this class, get on it right now. For more information, contact Krista with Cookshack, 800-423-0698. That's 800-423-0698. You can also email her at C_Jones. That's C_Jones at Cookshack.com. Get on that class. About 15 spots left. Don't want to miss that. All right. We are back to wrap the show right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Get in the smoke. Call 877-448-0433 to get on the air. Now, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Big B, Moonshine Band, Suburban Respect. Let's go! I'm an outlaw. Give me 2 shots. We don't need a radio. Bring a jukebox for my outlaws. Bring me 3 shots. We can raise hell before the speed stops. I'm a whiskey drinking SOB. If you don't like that, then you won't like me. I'm an outlaw.
All right, welcome back. 216-220-0966. Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. Obviously, John Dawson listening in tonight. Sends me this note on grill deaths. Check out the manner of death Brad Delp, former frontman of the iconic 70s rock band Boston. Delp committed suicide sometime between 11 p.m. and 8 p.m. Sometime between 11 p.m. on March 8th and 1:20 p.m. on March 9th, 2007 at age 55. He was found dead in his home on Academy Avenue in Atkinson, New Hampshire, from the smoke of 2 charcoal grills he lit inside his sealed master bathroom, which he placed in the bathtub. Wow. See, now, there's a difference, John. There is a difference there. Mr. Delp knew the side effects of lighting grills in a sealed master bathroom while taking his last hurrah cleansing. He was going for that. I don't think Ma and Pa Englands were pouring a glass of wine to relax themselves as they take their final inhales. They were just trying to stay freaking warm, dude. I'm just trying to stay warm, Martha. Hurry, light the grill and pour the wine. Man, thoughts and prayers of the family out there in the Englands for those guys. It's got to be, well, I got to say it's got to be a bad way to go, but it's not like the grill tipped over. They had kind of succumbed to the fumes but couldn't react, and then they burned to death because the flat burned out. That would be a bad way to go. Carbon monoxide, when you don't know about it, you've had some wine, you're like, oh, this is some pretty hot wine, dude. I'm already feeling it. Then you're out, and then you're, dead. It's below average, regardless. All right, folks, let's wrap it up here. All the way back in the first hour for segment 2 and 3, Meathead Goldwyn. We talked about salt. We talked about how rub makers should take all of the salt out of their rubs. Take it out! In the second hour, we talked with Matt Dalton from Left Coast Q and his win at Wildomar, California. And then we ended the show with Roger and Rod Livingston of R&R BBQ Team and their win at the Sam's Club Local in Salt Lake City, Utah. Widely known for their barbecue. That being Salt Lake, not the brothers Livingston. Obviously, they're known for their barbecue. All right, if you have raw cast iron, season it each and every time, for crying out loud. As it starts to cool, hit it with the grill brush, and then as it's cooling back down, a little Pam, maybe a little Crisco, let it burn back in. Generations of rust-free service. Also, September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. Until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.